You might know that Airbnb is illegal in Singapore, but have you ever wondered why? And also, is it legal in other countries? Watch on before you book your next Airbnb. So, before we talk about Singapore, we need to see how other countries handle this. Now, note that we are not just talking about Airbnb. We are talking about any place that allows people to stay in a house or a room that works like a hotel. Just like how we call this container Tupperware, and Tupperware is the brand, we have often called these places as Airbnb. Although nowadays, people are listing their short-term rentals in other platforms like Agoda or whatnot. So Airbnb is now, no longer a proper noun, but simply a noun now. And I will continue to use the word Airbnb because that's also how we talk in real life ma. So, how do other countries deal with Airbnb? Well, here's the thing. Although it feels like many other countries allow Airbnb, there's actually a misconception. We have this thought because we have often managed to book one in other countries. The fact is that other countries do have regulations pertaining to Airbnb rentals too. In fact, most countries will have some form of regulations, although theirs are not an outright ban. However, whether they enforce the regulations or not is another question. Let's look at some countries that we go to often. For example, in Taiwan, any stay below 30 days are not allowed, unless it's a hotel or if they have a homestay license, which we commonly call it Mingsu. There are rules to that. It's reported back in 2022 that about 90% of Airbnbs listed in Taipei are illegal. Let's use another example, Hong Kong. Over in Hong Kong, any stay below 28 days require a license. Nevertheless, note that it's the host who will be breaking the laws. So if you book an Airbnb and there's some kind of enforcement, you should be fine. However, the risk is that you might be evicted, so you'll lose any money you have paid lah. However, some countries are more open to Airbnb. For example, in Australia, Melbourne, they allow it, but there will be a levy. And most importantly, in Malaysia, it's legal, except for Penang. Instead of the government setting the law, the government let the condo decide. The reason why it's condo is because most Airbnbs in Malaysia are condos, although there are houses available too. Some condos will specifically say it's not allowed. Anyways, I know that because I have a friend who owns a condo that specifically say that it's not allowed lah. Anyways, technically, it's allowed. That might have caused a misconception that Airbnb is legal in other countries. Cause we all poor can only travel to Malaysia ma. Now, let's look at why it's illegal in Singapore. Well, for a start, the law says so. In Singapore, the minimum rental period for private property is 3 months, while for HDB, the minimum rental is 6 months. Anything lower than that, and you have to look at hotels or service apartments. But why? Well, there are 3 key reasons. Firstly, is for peace and security. Singapore is very dense, which means you will get to see your neighbours often, although you won't greet them lah. Now, it will be different if Airbnb is allowed. Imagine your neighbour change every 3 days. And because your neighbours are tourists, they don't need to work and come back at 2 AM every morning, playing loud sounds. I mean, I already cannot tahan my neighbours, so it's going to be tough handling tourists. Of course, it's also for safety, since you will never know if the tourist is someone who has done numerous illegal stuff. Secondly, which is more for HDB, is because HDB is a public housing that's heavily subsidised. It's not for you to make a profit, but for you to stay. I mean, HDB lost over $6 billion last year, and if you try to make money from it, it's no good lah. And thirdly, you'll realize that areas in Singapore are always zoned for certain purposes. For example, I'm typing this in my office, which is an area for work, as the surrounding buildings around me are all commercial buildings. Further down, there's a residential area with HDB blocks, and that is an area for residential. If a place that's designated for residential stay is, suddenly mixed with a hotel stay, it's going to be tricky lah, so cannot anyhow. But what if tourists just want to stay for a few days, but don't want to stay in a hotel? There's actually another option. If you are looking to advertise your business in this channel, we can help you. There are guaranteed views and many big brands have trusted us. Just click on the link in the description. Not many people know this, but Singapore has service apartments, which allow short-term rental. You see, technically, these are like hotels, except that they are built like an apartment instead. Their prices are usually almost similar to hotels, except that when you book for a longer period, like a month or so, the price will be much more attractive. These are usually for, say, a sports team coming to Singapore to compete, or a team of business people coming to Singapore for a long event. Now, each of these buildings mentioned have their own postal code, but do you know why? And did you know that Singapore used to have 4-digit postal codes before we switched to the 6-digit postal code we use today? Watch this to the end and you'll understand. Also, follow me on Instagram if you have not done so, as we publish exclusive short videos there. Link in description. And if you want to advertise with us, even as a standalone video, do contact us. Thank you for spending almost 5 minutes with me. I really appreciate it and hope you learned something.